And all of these things are going on, and nobody can really explain it. Well, it all has to do with this machine that they have in Alaska that can cause earthquakes. It can change weather patterns. It can what's the word? Show you the illusion of a UFO. It can give you the illusion of, because it can put a light of plasma in the sky, move it around, and take it out of the sky when they want. So I'm asking you to also investigate this yourself and just look at some of the UFO sightings. H.A.A.R.P can paint pictures in the sky. So if you see different color sky and it looks so unusual, there's something that you've never seen before, it's probably them playing with H.A.A.R.P. So this guy, are you playing now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This guy, Benjamin Fulford, said he is a journalist who was working in Japan. And what he said, he asked the guy, why did you turn all of your Japan's finances over to the United States? And he said, because the United States had threatened us with an earthquake machine. And to prove it, they made 2 earthquakes happen, 6.8, and I think the next day is 6.9. And so they began to take them very serious. And they turned the finances of Japan over to the United States, well, over to David Rockefeller. And matter of fact, the guy said the head of his group is actually George Bush Sr. So a lot of things are going on, and we need to understand some things that Christ said in the Bible concerning these matters. The Lord had me investigate all of this week, and not just to investigate H.A.A.R.P, but the Lord said, I want you to go back and I want you to look at every bombing that has happened in the past few years, and look at what date they've all landed on. And I want you to go back and look at all of the earthquakes that have happened in the past year, and look at what dates they've landed on. And then you'll be able to see a pattern that the same person is doing this. They just expect for people not to see. A few months ago, we had this booklet. We went over to another church and we went over this Bible study. When I taught one time about the 2012 and what it actually meant, and said that, 2012 is a religious day for people who worship Lucifer or Satan. These are Freemasons. This is a day that they're expecting that this Luciferian God is going to come back and rule the planet in 2012. And when the Lord had me look at this, and he said, basically, the Twin Towers were built to do a sacrificial offering to Satan on September 11th in 2001, because it's 11 years before 2012. And in 2012 is the year that they're supposed to celebrate the return. So they did this big thing in New York with the Twin Towers. And of course the world just said, of course, it's Muslims, they're attacking America. They made a movie about it before they actually did the 9/11 thing. So, as it turned out, that the United States was fully involved in this 9/11 event. It had really nothing to do with the Muslims bombing the Twin Towers. It had to do with them doing this worship of Lucifer by killing these people in these 2 towers that are shaped like the number 11. Okay? They're shaped like the number 11. Do you know that New York is the 11th state added to the Union? Did you know that Flight 11 is the first plane that hit? Did you know that there were 92 passengers on that plane? It's 92, it's 11. So it's like they're doing all of this because because that was to be the day that began to change the world, because this was going to be the ultimate sacrifice to Lucifer on this day. And they did it, and people were jumping out of the buildings, burning, being crushed by the buildings. And the person that fully knew who was involved, and that he also knew that he was part of the planning, came on television and said, we're going to get the Muslim countries that are responsible for this. And to tell you the truth, it had nothing to do with the Muslim countries. It had to do with this Freemason, this Luciferian worship that the United States has been involved in for many years. So, once they did that on September 11th, the Lord said, go back and look at all of the other 11s. Now, 911 days passed and nothing happened in the world. But then, on March 11th of 2004, exactly 911 days after the New York 9/11, there was a bombing in Madrid. And after that, on 12/11, there was a bombing in Algeria. Then after that, there was a bombing in Uganda on 7/11. Now, I went back and looked at all that. I found like 10 or 11 bombings that happened on the 11th. How many of you guys think that's just a coincidence? So, the Lord said, also look at the earthquakes. So I began to look back at the earthquakes. And I said, well, Haiti happened on the 12th. No, it was the 12th here. Look at the Haiti paper. It happened on the 11th. I said, but how, you can't start an earthquake. You know what I mean? How can you make somebody responsible for that? He says, yes, they can. You can start an earthquake. So this past earthquake that just happened in Japan just happened to happen on March 11th, which we thought March 12th, but it was actually March 11th. So somebody actually made that happen on that day. So the Lord said, look at all the earthquakes. So I started looking back and I saw that Chile had an earthquake this past year on the 11th. And then April of last year, they had an earthquake in Solomon Island on the 11th, which triggered an earthquake on the 13th in Japan that was 7.0. So, now, then Christ Church had an earthquake this past year on February 22nd. Now that would mean nothing to you unless you understand that John F. Kennedy made a speech against the Illuminati and against Freemasons. And they assassinated him on the 11th month, on the 22nd day, on the 33rd parallel of the city. All fractions of 11, right? So, things are not just happening. And this is what the Lord told me, that the dragon is a ferocious beast. And us as Christians, we need to be praying for the salvation of people in this world. Amen. I'm going to start really at my message here. And what happened in Japan was a H.A.A.R.P earthquake. They're able to make them. They generate huge earthquakes too. If you notice, these earthquakes that have been coming haven't been. They've been always the biggest earthquakes in the history of that country, right? Because these man-made generated earthquakes are a lot more ferocious than natural, well, what you would say, Mother Nature